Someone found a young mother dead in her bedroom. When they first started their investigation, detectives had almost nothing to go on. But soon, something happened that nobody saw coming. Because of this, they found shocking information that changed how the case went and helped them find the truth. Hi, and welcome back to our channel. If you are new here, please consider subscribing, as it helps us motivate to create more intriguing content for you. Let's have a look at the disturbing story of Michelle Young. Michelle Young was born on February 17, 1977, in a small town in the United States called Sayville, New York. The girl had a strong will from a very young age and never gave up. She set big goals for herself and did everything she could to achieve them. She did well in school and was the most popular cheerleader. She also knew from a young age that she wanted to work as a tax lawyer. Michelle got the education she needed at NC State University in Raleigh, North Carolina. She also joined a dance team in her neighborhood, but she quit later so she could focus more on school. 4 years later, she got her master's degree, and almost right away after that, she started working at a local accounting company. Michelle had just started working, but she was already making a good living at it. She started out by renting an apartment in a good neighborhood and spending a lot of time making her way up the job ladder. Michelle met Jason in February 2001 when she was 24 and at a party with her friends. He was a couple of years older than her, and they both went to the same college. The two people quickly found things they had in common with each other, and not long after that, they started dating. Jason worked for a big company that made power tools as a salesperson. He lived somewhere else, and when they met, he was in Raleigh for work. He went there more often after he met Michelle, and when he couldn't, they talked on the phone. He moved to the city for good later, and after a while, he moved in with Michelle. 2 years later, Michelle became pregnant, and in August 2003, the couple made the decision to marry. Their daughter, Cassidy, was born on March 29, 2004. At the same time, the family moved into a big house on the edge of the city in a nice area. Meredith, Michelle's sister, moved to Raleigh around the same time. She often helped the family take care of the baby. Michelle got pregnant again after 2 years, and she and her husband decided to celebrate by going to see Jason's parents. Their home was 400 kilometers away from where they lived. The trip turned out to be a tragedy instead of a happy time. Jason and Michelle had planned to go back to Raleigh on the day they were in a bad car accident that ended Michelle's pregnancy. The news was terrible for the whole family, but just 2 months later, Michelle got pregnant again. After a while, the couple found out they were having a boy, and they could not wait for him to come into the world. On November 2, 2006, Jason moved to another city to work as a salesperson. He often had business meetings and talks in different parts of the country. This time, he was going to a place about 490 kilometers away called Clintwood. On that day, Michelle asked her friend Shelley to come over. The two women talked until the friend's turn to go home came up. The next morning, Jason called Meredith, his wife's sister, and told her that before he left for another city, he found some brand-name women's bags in an online store with a good deal and wanted to order one for Michelle as a gift for their 3rd anniversary. After he left, he remembered that he had used these bags to print out several pages and left them on the table in his home office. Jason did not want his wife to see them and find out about the gift, so he asked her sister to take them away. Meredith agreed, and around 1 p.m., she showed up at their house. She did not have the keys with her, and Michelle should have been at work. But the woman knew that the broken garage door was easy to open by hand. She did that, but as soon as she did, she noticed something strange. Her sister's car was inside. Meredith thought she had gone to work when she walked into the house. When Michelle walked into the kitchen, her bag was on the floor. No one answered when the woman called out her sister's name. Instead, she heard their dog barking, which was a strange sound. When Jason and Michelle left the house, they always let the dog out into the yard. When the woman went upstairs, she saw something red on the floor of the bedroom. As she got closer, she saw that it was a spot of blood, and that her sister Michelle was lying next to it. This made her feel sick. She was lying down. Meredith went up to her sister and tried to turn her over, but her sister's body was cold right away. The woman was scared and immediately called 911. At the same time, Cassidy, who was 2 years old and hiding under the bed next to where the body was, crawled out and ran to her aunt when she saw her. Meredith called the police and took her outside to wait for them. When the woman was talking to the operator, he asked, "Is the child okay?" Meredith checked on her and did not see any obvious injuries. There were tiny blood spots all over the room, and she knew right away that they were where the child had stepped. The child was given to the doctors right away so they could check on him or her. And the cops started to look into what happened. The first thing they noticed was that the room was full of bloody tracks, but Cassidy's feet were clean. Also, not a single drop of blood was on the girl. There was only one path to the bathroom. Inside the bathroom door, there were what looked like handprints of blood. Using all of this knowledge, the agents came up with the most likely explanation for what had happened. After the murder, the girl was locked in the bathroom for a while. Then someone came in and washed Cassidy's blood off. Later, when the police talked to Michelle's friend, they learned something else that was interesting. Shelley said that they put the girl to sleep with them the night before, and she was wearing a diaper. But when the victim's sister went to her house, the baby did not have a diaper on. Based on this, the cops decided that the same person who washed the blood off the child was also the person who took off the child's diaper. The cops did not find any signs of a break-in in the house. Michelle was missing her wedding and engagement rings, but all of her other things, including cash, were still there. This made it impossible for someone to have stolen from her. 2 small hairs that did not belong to the victim were found on her body and near her. The prize box did not have any DNA samples from Michelle or her husband. There were also fingerprints in the house that did not belong to anyone in their family. In the room where the victim's body was found, experts found 2 shoe prints with a pattern on the bottoms. The shoes were sizes 10 and 12 in the United States, and their marks were on the floor. Even what kind of shoes they were able to figure out. Also, there were blood stains on the door of the closet with clothes when the cops came. But the door was open, and the way the paint splatters were put made it look like the door should have been closed. When the police looked at Jason's home office computer's browsing activity, they found something interesting. There were pages from a store for women's goods and a search for ways to get to Clintwood, but there were also some scary searches, like the anatomy of a knockout, what causes a person to lose awareness after a head injury, and other similar topics. The reason Michelle died was because a big thing hit her head and hurt her brain, according to doctors, more than 30 times. The guy who did it hit her. She was 5 months pregnant when she died, but her baby did not make it. Experts could not say for sure when Michelle died, but they thought it was probably between 5 and 6 in the morning. Because of how violent the crime was, it seemed likely that the person who did it knew the victim and did not like her very much. Like they always do, the cops first looked into Michelle's husband. They talked to their friends and family and told them a lot of interesting things. Jason and Michelle fought a lot about things at home, which made their marriage hard. Also, when Jason's wife found out she was going to have their first child, Jason was not happy. Michelle said no when he asked her to have an abortion. Michelle got pregnant again after Jason and Michelle were in an accident. This did not make Jason happy. It seemed likely that the 2 people would break up soon. Meredith also told the police that Jason's request to get the handbag back seemed strange at first, especially since their marriage was having trouble and it had been more than 3 weeks since their anniversary. But one clear fact showed that Jason could not have done it. When the murder happened, he was 490 kilometers away in a different place. After Michelle's sister found her body and called the police, she also told Michelle's other family members what had happened. When Michelle's mother called, Jason was on his way from Clintwood to see his parents. He stopped by his parents' house on the way home. They told him what had happened when he got there. Jason was shocked to hear the news. He and some of his cousins went to Raleigh right away. While Jason was on this trip, a friend called him and told him that the police were asking a lot of questions about him. When Jason said he did not want to talk to the cops and instead wanted to hire a lawyer, he did something strange. This made the cops even more worried, but it also gave them a new piece of information. The day before the murder, Shelley went to see the victim and told the police something interesting. Michelle had told her that she would be feeling like someone was always watching her lately. Shelley also felt like someone was watching them through the window that night, and she asked her friend to walk her to her car because she was afraid to leave the house alone. Detectives tried to find proof of possible surveillance, but they also kept looking into Jason's possible involvement. On November 2, Jason drove his car from his house to Clintwood. Since it was about a 6-hour drive, he stopped at the Hampton Hotel, which is about halfway between his house and Clintwood. Detectives asked this hotel for a security video and saw Jason check in at 10:54 p.m. 2 minutes later, he used his key card to get into his room, and then he never used it again. The next morning at 7:40 a.m., he called his mother. The signal went through a cell tower near the town of Whiteville. This town was on its way from the hotel to Clintwood, where he had a business meeting. The police also found out that Jason was 30 minutes late to the meeting, which was meant to start at 10 a.m. When Jason and his family got back home, the police had already taken away his white Ford Explorer. After looking at it, forensic experts could not find any blood or other hints. They also looked in the man's hotel room, but did not find anything there either. Jason had the same clothes and other things. In a strange turn of events, the same brand of size 12 boots was found in both his car and his house, but it was a different style and the bottom had a different design. A court order made the man give a DNA sample, but it did not match the 2 hairs found on the body of the victim. They also took his fingerprints, but that did not help much because they were all over his house. The only thing experts could say was that none of the fingerprints found had any blood on them. So the police could not find any evidence that Jason had anything to do with the killings. He did not talk to the police and instead hired a lawyer. Another thing showed that he was not guilty in a roundabout way. When the police searched Jason's car, they found a hotel ticket and a new newspaper. A Hampton worker said he put them under his door between 3 and 5 a.m. This showed that the man was definitely at the hotel that morning. Things ended up getting pretty difficult. Jason could have killed his wife only if he had snuck out of the hotel in the middle of the night, driven 270 kilometers to his house, done the deed, cleaned himself of blood, and then driven 270 kilometers back and quietly gotten back into his room so that the electronic key did not record it. Detectives tried to find out if this was theoretically possible. They talked to people who worked at the hotel, which is how they learned an interesting piece of information. Early in the morning of November 3, one of the workers saw that a small red stone was keeping the fire door on the first floor slightly open. This door was always locked from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m., which surprised the worker. He took the rock out from under the door and closed it. After that, the man decided to check the security cameras and saw that the one on the stairs next to the door was not working. The worker went up to it and saw that someone had cut the wire to the camera. He asked his friend to put the wire back where it should be, and at 5:50 a.m., the camera started working again. The record showed that the camera was turned off at 11:19 p.m. Then something interesting happened at 6:35 a.m., less than an hour after the camera was back up and running. It turned around and looked up all of a sudden. Since there is no automatic way to move it, the only thing that could be done was for someone to turn it so that it did not face the hallway. The hotel staff said that the camera had never been turned off before, and that the only time it had been turned up was a few years ago, when a guest tried to sneak out of the hotel without being seen. This showed the police that Jason could have left the hotel, gone home, and then come back. With the door and the camera, the idea was clear. You can only open the fire doors in a hotel room. Jason could have left the hotel through this door instead of the main entrance, where staff and other cameras would have seen him. Talking to Michelle's friends was another place where investigators found interesting clues. On the night of the murder, a woman was delivering newspapers to an area near Michelle's house when she saw a light-colored SUV, but she could not remember what kind it was. At 5:20 a.m., another neighbor went to work and also saw a white SUV near Jason and Michelle's house. She could see that a man was driving, but she could not see his face. The fact that a woman was sitting next to him in the passenger seat made it even more interesting. The person who lives next door thought she was trying to cover up. At 6:15 a.m., the third witness drove by her house and saw a white SUV there, but no one was in it. The Texas thought that Jason was the owner of this car, so it was a big surprise to see a woman in the car with him. No one knew who she was, but when the cops looked into it, they found out that the man had been cheating on his wife with her friends since they were in college. The woman lived in Florida, and Jason often went there to see her while saying he was going on work trips. Detectives also found out that the lovers had called each other about 50 times the day before Michelle's murder, but they did not know what they talked about. Even after everything, the police still had no proof that Jason had anything to do with killings. Even if his lawyer was not there, he would not talk to the police. But even when the lawyer was there, he did not answer their questions. Detectives kept looking into the case, and it took them a long time to figure out what had happened. They were almost sure that Jason was the one who killed the man, but they did not have enough proof to arrest him right away. This did not happen until December 14, 2009, 3 years after the murder. Investigators knew they could not find any more evidence, so they put all the evidence they already had together and charged him with murder. After 2 years, the trial started in June 2011. The lawyer said that Jason planned to kill his wife because he did not want to lose some of his property in the divorce. The way they tell it, he first decided to stay at that hotel so that he could drive home, kill someone, and then drive back to the hotel. At the meeting, Jason's ex-girlfriends also spoke up. One of them said that he had proposed to her and given her a ring, but that he had later grabbed her hand during a fight and taken the ring off her finger. Since the killer took Michelle's rings, these statements were important to the prosecution. Michelle's friend turned out to be the second woman Jason slept with. She said that Michelle hung out with a man at his house when she went somewhere. She was also married, and one of those nights, Jason took off her wedding ring. The woman thought it was strange that he did not give it back until the next day. At the meeting, Michelle's college friend, who was also one of her lovers, also spoke. She said that they did have a connection, but that the prince they wrote to was much more interesting. A few days before the murder, he wrote to her about how unsure he was about the situation and how he thought it would end in tragedy. The message said that he did not know how things had turned out, but he knew that they would end up breaking 2 hearts. Even though he knew he was going to hurt, he told her she was worth it, even if only for a moment. Given that Michelle's life ended soon after she got this message, its contents were very scary. But a woman who worked at a gas station between Raleigh and the town where Jason's hotel was one of the most important witnesses. She said that at 5:20 a.m., a man in a white SUV drove up to the farthest pump. He tried to fill up his car, but the law says that you have to pay for gas or show your ID before you can do it at night. The driver yelled at the worker at the gas station. Then he threw her $20, put $15 worth of gas in his car, and left without taking the change. The woman said she knew this man from the picture, and it turned out to be Jason Young. This witness changed how the case went because she showed that Jason was between his house and the hotel early in the morning. Again, this proved that he could have killed his wife. At the meeting, Michelle's sister Meredith also spoke up. Michelle's daughter Cassidy stayed with her father, who moved in with his parents after Michelle died. Michelle's family tried for a long time to get a court order that would let them temporarily take her in. This went on for a few years, and just as the lawyers were about to get a good decision, Jason gave up full custody of Meredith, basically leaving her behind. So, The girl moved in with her mother's cousins. Since then, they have been raising her without any help from her father. Jason finally told the court what he thought happened, and he denied killing his wife. He admitted that their marriage was falling apart, but he said that they would have gotten a divorce anyway, and that he had no reason to kill her. His lawyers said there was no evidence against Jason and tried to show that he could not have driven so far to kill his wife and get back to the hotel so early in the morning. They looked at how often he filled up and tried to figure out how much gas his car used on average. The lawyers say that he would not have had enough gas to make the trip, but it was not possible to check this version. Still, the jury could not decide as a group, so the judge had to call a mistrial and set a new hearing for a year later. In this setting, something else important took place. Michelle's family was sure that Jason was the one who killed her, so they went to civil court to sue him. In civil cases, the judge does not need as much proof as in criminal trials, and the person cannot go to jail. Jason did not pay any attention to this case and decided not to be involved, which was a mistake. The judge ruled that he killed his wife after looking at all the evidence. He told Jason to give $15 million to Michelle's family. During the retrial in 2012, the prosecution was able to use the decision of the civil case as proof that the suspect was guilty. While they were getting ready, they also learned something else. It turned out that Jason had bought boots with the same pattern a year before he died. Michelle's room had a bloody picture of those boots, but they could not find the shoes. These new facts only helped Jason's case, and the jury decided he was guilty of murder this time. The man got a term of life in prison without the chance of getting out. His lawyers tried to fight the decision, and they still do so today, but all of their requests are denied. This case got a lot of attention in the news, and the end of it sparked a lot of heated arguments. On the one hand, after all these years, there is still no hard evidence that Jason was involved in the murder. On the other hand, there was a lot of evidence that the man had almost done a perfect job of hiding what he had done. If he had not stopped at the gas station that morning and paid for gas, he might have gotten away with the crime. But the jury thought the evidence was good enough to convict him, and even though he says he is innocent, he has been in prison ever since. How do you feel about this case? Tell us your thoughts in the comment section below. Also, if you want more stories like this, please like and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.